are, because this is, well, I'm just gonna speak, okay? So this is it. So you know how those lids on those Starbucks cups, they're white, right? And so if you wear lipstick, they get all over the lid. And so then I find myself in meetings if I'm the only woman, and that's kind of, and so I keep taking the lid off and having my cup out so that I don't have that big lipstick mark on the lid. So I said, can we do something about the color of the lid? So that was that conversation.
And the scary part, and I hate using the word scary because that makes me sound like a liberal when they say, oh, it's so scary. But the scary in a kind of like, is this really, are we living in the Twilight Zone? Kind of way
Yes.
is that woman could become president of the United States. She's talking about lids, and she's talking like she's black. And then she's talking about, in another video, she's talking about collard greens soaking in the bathtub. Right? Like, where are you from? You from the hood? Are you from Georgia? No, you're from California. What are you talking about? You're half Indian. You're not a hood girl. Stop. And you know what it is? You and I both have black wives, okay? Who talk nothing like that. He'll talk like you got lids, all right? It's insulting to them. But see, it's pandering season, Joe Restinello. It's pandering season. It's like Hillary Clinton with her freaking hot sauce.
She's an abuela.
Right.
Plays
She's
dominoes
and
right? Plays dominoes in front of the building in the Bronx.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Hey, listen, when you and I used to go up to the soup kitchen, you know, we were passing the street corner, and Hillary was sitting there with the homeboys playing dominoes.
She was smoking a cigar, like
smoking a cigar.
Chipperillo.
And then when she's about to win, she goes, "Domino, mother!" You know,
without a doubt.
Ice groups. You know, and that's a fact. Hey, listen, I'll tell you what. I'm gonna play you something. I'm not gonna play the whole thing. But seriously, we have to come to grips with the idea that she may very well become the president of the United States.
I'm very confident that Harris will win because the keys don't easily change. They look at the big picture of incumbent strength and performance. Never have I changed a prediction because of anything that's happened in the so-called October surprise. That is a myth.
So basically, Joe Restinello, it goes on like that. So Alan Lichtman is saying that hold on one sec, Joe. Let me just mute that. So basically, Alan Lichtman saying, and you know the statistics with him. I think he was wrong, like you said one time. Bush Gore back in 2000. So let's face it, cackling Kamala could be the next president of the United States, and then we're all in freaking trouble.
Well, a couple things. He's won just about all of his predictions. I think this is a different type of election, though. In fairness to Alan, he's the professor. He has his 13 keys. I think this is a little different type of election. I still don't think Trump's going to be the president. For the reason where I disagree with him is I think he could potentially win the election. They're just not going to allow him to get sworn in January 5th. And if that happens, I think they'll kill him. I've said that before. I'll say it again. With that said, in fairness, that's why we played that clip. I mean, he is a guy that has a track record, a winning track record. People should know that. That came out like last couple days after the debate. So, you're right. She could become the president. In fairness, though, as the polls are right now, it's pretty much a deadlock. I've seen Trump up on Trafalgar, on Real Politics. She's up by 1.9%. On Trafalgar, he's up 1.7%. So we'll just call it even as of right now.
As of right now.
Yeah. So it's a flat number. With that said, though, I think if he's going to win, he has to really win. because there is going to be shenanigans with regard to the mail-in ballots, with regard to that's just a fact. I mean, like, you have to calculate that in. And frankly, that's why Cardinal Burke put in that novena. I think, to be honest with you, we need the Blessed Mother's intercession. I mean, I prayed it tonight with my wife, and I have been praying it. And to be honest with you, listen, God has a plan. Whoever, becomes the president is a part of that plan. The sad reality is she shouldn't be the president. Not that he's, the best thing since sliced bread either, but at the same time, dude, people are just too caught up in their political identity. Her ideas are going to cause a lot of financial pain to the people, like it or not. But sadly, people don't pay attention to facts. It's Joe, I'll be truthful.
That's why I don't even know why they do debates. I don't even know why they do. Most people don't. Most people came away from that debate net zero. She's not swaying anybody to vote for her. He's not swaying anybody to vote for him.
We're going to talk about that. Let's go, because I have some ideas on that. I agree with you on some things, but I also want to put out some metrics. I call them metrics that matter, that really weren't talked about, that are underneath the surface, that I think people should be paying attention to.
So where did you want to go?
Let's go to Vivek, see what he has to say.
Okay, all right. Well, that's what I was thinking. But yeah, because again, you're right. People should be paying attention, especially the fact that, too, Joe, not for nothing, real quick before we go there. Just the amount of lying that she did. And then again, the media shows themselves to be true to form. I don't know why the Republicans agree to these debates all the time. And they never hold firm and say, we're not debating unless we have next to Mr. Muir, okay, or whatever the broad's name was, okay, I want Tucker Carlson sitting right there.
Well, in fairness,
sitting right there.
I'm not going to complain about it, because I expected that. And I think it was a net zero game. There was no home run moments.
But she would have got my point, Joe Arsenault. I'm sorry. She would have gotten beat.
But here's the thing. He took a gamble. He took the same gamble with Joe Biden and won the gamble. He took a gamble and he lost the gamble. But I don't think he lost the debate. I think it was a wash. And frankly, I'm going to talk about that, because there are some metrics that even show that he got an edge. And I'm going to tell people that. And these are coming from liberal sources, which weren't highlighted. But ultimately, you're right. And we're going to also talk about if there is a second debate. There's been a lot of talk. Gotcha. Chris Christie has weighed in on that. And she's already declined one of his suggestions, someone from Fox. So ultimately, let's keep it level. We'll have a level playing field. And I'm not going to complain, Joe. I expected that. And frankly, to be truthful with you, I think he held his own. He got a lot of points out there. It's about people listening. And the important people, and we're going to talk about this after this clip, are the undecideds. And the New York Times said something very interesting about that. And so did Reuters.
Well, let's play with Vivek. But if you're joining us here, thanks everybody for joining us here at the front line with Joe and Joe. Remember, share this video wherever you're seeing it: X, Rumble, Facebook, YouTube, the whole 9 yards. You're helping us tremendously to grow our audience, particularly on X. We really appreciate it. So let's see what Vivek has to say.
My frank assessment of where things do stand in the race. She did have a lot of momentum coming out of the convention, even coming out of her announcement as the presumptive nominee. I do think a lot of that already has stalled, and it's stalled principally around issues of policy. Kamala Harris has been completely opaque about what her policy positions actually are. She stands in favor of a tax on unrealized capital gains. She hasn't explained exactly how that would function. Why has she changed her position on healthcare, on Medicare for all, on other areas like bans on fracking? So I hope tonight gives Americans and voters what they deserve, which is a clear picture of both candidates, where they stand on policy.
How does your candidate, former President Trump, put the spotlight on that evolution, on the issues, on the flip-flopping, as you guys call them? How does he stay disciplined and put that pressure on her, especially in a debate where you have the mics turned off and it's 2 minutes for you, 2 minutes for them?
So the reality is, with the mics turned off, a lot of this is going to fall on the moderators. I hope they do a good job. A lot of conservatives did have skepticism about CNN and their moderators being able to moderate a fair debate. I think they did last time around, and I'm rooting for that in the case of ABC as well. But I do think it's the job of not only the moderators, but also Donald Trump to focus on what his policies actually are. And I think Kamala Harris's own words are the friend of a Republican candidate here. Where Kamala Harris ran for president in the year 2020, she adopted positions that she is trying to run away from now. Those were short 4 years ago. So my best advice would be use her own words. You don't need to put words in her mouth. Just tell the public what she said. And if she's changed her mind, which it looks like she claims to have in many cases, she deserves to explain exactly why and what her new position is. She hasn't.
She hasn't done that. Now, I want to hand it right over to you, but I will say this, okay? One thing that Vivek said, that this is pure pandering on Kamala Harris's part, because it's never going to happen, Joe Resinello. And I'm going to tell you why. Pure pandering, dividing people along the lines of class, okay? Unrealized capital gains. You know who's not going for that? The Silicon Valley corporate executives that own millions, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, and billions of dollars of their company stock. Okay, that's unrealized gains. There's no way that she's going to stab them in the back because they're all voting for her, and there's no way she's going to do that to her Wall Street donors. So that's a pure lie. She's not going to tax unrealized gains. It's going to go down in flames because Wall Street and Silicon Valley give more money to Democrats than they do to Republicans. I'll just throw that over to you.
Well, there were a lot of contradictions. One of the glaring ones, and then I want to go to the metrics that matter, but I do want to bring this up because I think it's important. As the debate was going on, it brought me back to when Joe Biden debated Donald Trump, and he talked about fracking, and he lied straight out about the ban. And he did the exact opposite the second he got into office. And she did the same thing. I hope people picked up on that. But sadly, to your point, Joe, debates are all about, sadly, people rooting for their guy. And they have selective hearing. And they only hear what they want to hear. Ultimately, as far as supporters for Kamala Harris, no one changed their mind. As far as the Trump people, they're all showing up. It's the undecideds that matter. And why do I bring that up? The New York Times, and I invite all people to check it out, ran an article. And this was the headline of the article. The pundits say Harris won. Undecided voters are not sure. And they're referencing a poll taken by Reuters. They picked 10 random undecided people, and 6 of the 10 after the debate said they were not satisfied with Harris's answers. They were not detailed enough, talking to what Vivek just spoke about, and they're voting for Donald Trump. That is a metric that matters. Another metric that matters, and this came from CNN, they just didn't highlight it enough, but you can go on their website and see it. They list the big issues. The 2 biggest issues are the economy and immigration. Before the debate, Trump was ahead of Kamala Harris on who will do a better job on the economy, 57 to 35. I saw today he actually won a point. He's now 56 to 35 or 34, which means he's 20 points ahead on the most important issue to the American people. The second most important issue, which Trump did a phenomenal job of making a lot of points, all of which point directly to Kamala Harris because she was the border czar. Everyone knows it. Everyone saw the clips. He's 20 points ahead on the CNN poll on that, which could potentially mean he's 30 points ahead.
You're about on immigration?
Correct. So the
Okay.
2 biggest issues noted on CNN, Trump has a 20 percentage point lead on Harris. No one's brought that up. They should be bringing that up. Also, a third actor came into this particular debate, the media. And here's the deal. I've even seen people who are not interested in politics. My friend who's a plumber, I saw on his social media, he's indifferent to politics. He even commented how it was a biased moderation of the debate. Why do I bring that up? Not to cry. I expected that. But I do think people are sick of it.
Right.
People are sick of it, and that goes in Trump's favor. So there are things that basically haven't been talked about, particularly the undecided votes that are in Trump's favor. I'll tell you another poll that wasn't talked about. C-SPAN, which is a neutral outfit, but it's an outfit that deals in facts. Trump, they said that Trump won the debate something like 75% to 30 something percent.
Which
Or
outfit was that?
C-SPAN.
Oh, see, oh, that's right. Yeah.
So my point is, Trump didn't get crushed. I mean, of course, the pundits want to hear what they want to hear, and they're spinning their spin. And I'll tell you this, in fairness, Trump missed a lot of opportunity.
He absolutely did.
And that's being fair. And Kamala Harris was prepared and showed up. But that doesn't mean that she crushed him. He made many, many, many good points, particularly on the economy and immigration. They're the two most important points. And on CNN's poll, this is CNN, they say he's up by 20% on both issues. So I'm not saying he won, but what I'm saying is he hardly got crushed. And here's another thing. People are focusing on eating cats and ducks. How about we focus on people eating food that they can't pay for groceries, talking about platitudes. I'm here to give you hope. We're not going to go backwards. We're going to turn the page. How about you tell people how much they're going to pay for their monthly grocery? And I saw another interview with undecideds. This was from Dr. Phil, believe it or not, but it was a person, him interviewing a random person. And what she said was, when Kamala Harris started rambling about giving money for houses, this person basically said, who has an 8th grade understanding of economics, because that's all you need to have to give this particular answer. She basically said, if you do that, it's going to cause more inflation and it's going to affect the middle class. Bingo. So ultimately, that is nothing more than a carrot. It's been tried. They did the same thing with student loans. People are calling it out. And frankly, to the pundit's point that she crushed him, won, I wouldn't say that. I think it was a wash, frankly. If anything, it was a push. And those metrics that matter that I just mentioned are not being talked about. And if anything, they favor Donald Trump. And
Right.
should pay attention to this, because as of right now, and here's another metric that matters. She didn't get a bump as a result of
Right. She's got no bump.
no bump. So ultimately, you got to measure it by something outside of somebody like CNN or MSNBC
Saying that, oh, she was
One.
so brilliant and wonderful, and she brought her A game. You know what? She really didn't bring her A game. And my problem, please, all everybody out there, as it stands right now, don't get all bent out of shape. I'm voting for Donald Trump, if for no other reason. Okay, at this point, because the other side is completely evil, and Donald Trump isn't going to destroy the country. In fact, in many ways, like Joe said, in many ways, very grassroots, very tangible ways, he's gonna help the country. But the fact is that Donald Trump dropped the ball because Donald Trump decided to bring his B game. And this has always been my problem with Trump. I voted for him in 2016. I voted for him in 2020, as you did. Okay. Is that sometimes he's got to listen. Because in the debate with Biden, he listened. He just stayed on point. He stayed on point. She would have imploded. He had so much of an opportunity. Now, he pivoted on abortion. We don't like that, but he did. And that's the reality of the situation, okay, that he pivoted for this campaign on abortion. Having said that, by doing that, he diffused it on the political level. He diffused it. He took the power away from her, and he dropped the ball. He could have crushed her on abortion. And then the wench moderator turned around and fact-checked him, and she lied. And they'll apologize for that about 1 o'clock in the morning on some day that nobody's watching that station and nobody's watching ABC. She'll apologize and say she was wrong when he talked about, and we covered it on the show, when Ralph Northam said a baby who's born because the doctor failed to kill that baby in an abortion. Okay. The doctor's not required to give medical treatment. Kamala's running mate, Tim Walz, he signed legislation that allowed doctors to not have to treat that child. Okay, because before he signed it, a doctor would have had to treat the child. Okay, Donald Trump had a golden opportunity to take the one issue that the Democrats think that they could win on, which is abortion, and completely diffuse it. And that's my problem with Trump. She didn't bring her A game. The problem is Trump brought his B game, and he should have done what he did in the first debate against Biden. That's what he should have done.
To your point, I think that has a lot to do with, Trump has his strengths and weaknesses. One of his weaknesses, it's his hubris. I don't think he was as prepared as he should have been. I listened to an interview today with Chris Christie, and he said that he was involved in the Trump camp, and he does not prepare in the way that he should for debates. He takes them for granted. I was listening to Russell Brand break that down today. Basically, he wings them. You don't wing a debate.
Right.
You show up prepared to anything in life, particularly something that's important. You show up. And to your point, he did bring his B game. He missed a lot of opportunities, but at the same time, he did make points. And I'll tell
I
you
agree
what.
with you on that.
And I'll tell you also, particularly in the beginning of the debate, which is the most important part of the debate, the first 20 minutes, if you looked at Kamala Harris's face, she was rattled. I could see it in her face. I could see it in her eyes. In fact, her eyes were watery. She actually was rattled. I could see it. It was very evident in her face. So my point is, it was a wash. It didn't affect Trump's base. It didn't affect her base. She got absolutely no bump from it. But when it comes to the undecideds, and the New York Times said so, they were in Trump's favor because he was more fact-based, policy-driven, and she's speaking in broad-based terms and in platitudes. And that was a criticism going into the debate from even some of the, what's it called? The news outlets, CNN.
Right.
You're not doing an interview. You're not giving details. You're running for president. People deserve the facts. Sadly, and this is a problem with our politics, and we could have a whole show about this, and I'm not going to belabor the point. People just belong to tribes, Joe. Joe, it's the saddest thing I've ever seen in my life. I cannot even believe that anyone, and I'm not pointing fingers, I'm just stating reality. This woman and Joe Biden opened the border and destroyed the working class of America, and they pretend like they support them with their policies. All of these people that came in, say between 15 and 20 million people, that's as many people that are in the state of New York, one of the biggest states in America. They're going to compete for the jobs of the working poor and the lower middle class. They're going to cause housing prices to go up for the working poor and the middle class. And her answer is, I'm going to give you more money, which in turn is going to cause more inflation, which is going to hurt the poor and the working class. All you need is an 8th grade understanding of economics to know that. And sadly, these same people are going to vote for her because they identify as a Democrat. And Joe, I'm going to be honest with you. The more I see that, the more we're involved in this, the more I say that this problem in America is so much deeper than this election. Our people are sick. Our people are sick.
Well, let me ask you a question. Let me throw something out there to you, okay? Who's more evil than the black liberal establishment that knows that they've allowed her and Biden and the rest of the left to let in 10 to 20 million people that are going to directly take jobs away from African Americans? Who's more evil than the black liberal establishment that then tries to convince those same black people who can't get a job, okay, because an illegal immigrant took their job, and that black congressman in Baltimore and Newark and Detroit goes back and says, you got to vote for me because I got your back. No, you don't. You let in 10 million people. They took my freaking job. How about an 18, 19-year-old kid who's a busboy in a restaurant, okay, trying to struggle and pay his bills, and he doesn't have a job anymore because the employer turns around, he's going to give the job to somebody who they can pay less money to. They're the most evil and complicit. But let's move on real quick. Let's move on because I've said that. I don't care what anybody says. The black liberal establishment, shame on them. But by the way, black people in America are waking up at a rate that has the Democrats quaking. That's why you said 3 weeks ago on this show, okay? That's why they need to replace black people, because eventually they're going to lose black people, because black people are like everybody else. They're like, what the hell's going on? They're like, what the hell's going on? You have no policies that are actually benefiting me. You've tried to convince us for the last 70 years that everything you do is to benefit us. In the meantime, go look at Chicago, Newark, Detroit, Baltimore, all of them. Philadelphia, they're all a disaster. All Democrat-run cities. What are Democrats doing for black people? And black people are waking up to it. But again, shame on the black liberal establishment. So here's the thing about debates, okay? Is somebody in the RNC or the GOP, is somebody going to hold their ground, okay? And after Kamala decides not to do a debate because she doesn't want to agree to the moderators, then go out to the media and go shame her and call her afraid because she doesn't want to answer tough questions? I wonder if that's going to happen, but let's hear what Trump's got to say.
When we started the interview, you said that you felt that you won the debate last night, your best ever. I think before the debate happened last night, the Kamala Harris people said that they would actually like to do another debate in October. And I know that last night Fox News sent letters to your campaign and her campaign offering 3 dates of debates moderated by Martha and Brett. One is October 9th in Arizona.
Well, I wouldn't want to have Martha and Brett. I'd love to have somebody else other than Martha and Brett. I'd love to have, frankly, Sean or Jesse or Laura, somebody else. Let's give other people a shot. But I didn't think Martha and Brett were good last night. I thought Jesse was fantastic last night, what he said. Jesse really got it. Jesse said Trump won that debate. We won that debate by a lot. No, I wouldn't want Martha involved.
Okay.
I would.
So now Trump's saying that he wants to, let's say, Laura Ingraham, Sean Hannity. I don't want Sean Hannity to moderate a debate. I'm not going to lie to you. I've been turned off to Sean Hannity for a long time. He's okay. Laura Ingraham, I think she would do a good job. Jesse Waters would do a good job. The Democrats are never going to agree to that. Okay, that's number one. And the Republicans just need to, at one point, draw a line, but then they need follow through. Drawing the line means, okay, Kamala and your camp, you don't want to debate. You don't want to debate with moderators that might lean a little bit more towards our point of view, or even if they're neutral, they're going to ask you some tough questions about fracking, about your flip-flopping, about an unrealized capital gains tax, about the fact that you were a failure, and you were, the borders are, no matter how much your sycophants in the media want to deny it. So he's going to ask you tough questions. Are the Republicans going to follow through and go out to the larger world and say, she's a coward? She's a coward. She won't answer tough questions. No, you want to know why? Because the tactic, Joe, of calling people racist, misogynist, and the whole 9 yards, it works with Republicans because Republicans have no stones.
Well, I'll take it another step further. The Republicans are trying to encourage Trump to take that offer because they're against him too. They're against him too. Trump is an outsider, and most of the Republicans are dogs. That's number one. Number two, I said this last year, and I'm going to say it again. No more debates. I'm not debating on your terms. We're debating on neutral terms, or we're not doing it at all. And to your point, a few more points, actually. Chris Christie went on The View, and he said Kamala Harris should not do another debate. Basically saying you came away from that debate with basically some good punches thrown. Don't risk it. And that is good advice from the man from New Jersey. Chris Christie said that on The View. Also, Trump's camp recently just floated another gentleman from Fox, Joe. It starts with a C. I don't know.
Concha.
Bingo. And they said no. Why? Why do you?
And he's a fair guy. And
why do you have to handpick the moderator? The moderator should not even be visible in a debate. All they're doing is asking fair questions, because the debate is not about the candidates. It's about the American people. It's about a situation which gives the American people insight into how they should vote, but it's not about that. But I'm not going to complain because, frankly, Trump took a calculated risk by taking this debate on a very biased network. And frankly, the calculated risk did not work in his favor. And he didn't come up. He didn't show up, if you ask me. So I'm not going to complain. But what I am going to say is, if you're so confident with your debate, Ms. Harris, well, then take somebody else on Trump's terms and see how good you do. Because I'll tell you what, if you are challenged, if you are fact-checked, even if it's even, I don't think you're going to do too well. And the American people are going to see you for who you are. And then maybe they'll think twice. But sadly, some people still won't think twice, even though she's going to punish you financially. She's going to punish you financially, and that's the sickness. Joe, it's a sickness. I talked to my wife about it 2 nights ago. I went to confession about it today, to be honest with you. I was ranting so crazy in my house about it. I can't understand it.
Right.
I can't understand it.
Well,
I
you
have
gotta get
never,
the root
it's like the
causes.
Stockholm syndrome, Joe.
Yeah.
People empower another human being who consistently hurts them, and they compartmentalize that hurt. They even compliment the person
Hmm.
and continue to give them power to continue to hurt them. It's like letting someone in your house that's going to beat you, and
Right.
all you have to do is lock the door,
Hmm.
and you refuse to do it.
I can't help but think about Kevin Bacon in Animal House. Thank you, sir. May I have another? Thank you, sir. May I have another?
It's just Joe, but I can't, like, what I was basically like communicating to Sabrina, my wife. I was like, I don't understand it. Like, I can't listen. I'm all about, say, okay, I like this person. I like some of the things they say. I'm going to vote for him. Say, most people aren't political and they only listen to sound bites. They're not listening to these, like, little like points here. They're not, doing research. They just listen to sound bites. They listen to the news. So, okay, maybe they're not as informed because they don't have the time. With
Right.
that said, though, if someone has a track record, Kamala Harris isn't new on the scene. She's a part of the Joe Biden mess. You're
Part of the
cleaning up
machine.
what? You were there for 3.5 years. And frankly, that's what Donald Trump said in his closing statement. If you didn't do it in 3.5 years, why should we expect you to do it now? But yet we tune that out. We turn that off. I simply don't like Donald Trump. Orange man bad. Joe, it's a sickness. I'm serious. It is a sickness. And I don't know what to say to it. I
have found
stand flabbergasted by it.
I found that
Flabbergasted.
the most objective people when it comes to Donald Trump, quite frankly, in my experience and watching social media, people I run into are pretty much Roman Catholics, faithful Roman Catholics. In other words, because there's some Roman Catholics, of course, a good portion. Hey, by the way, she's running neck and neck amongst Catholics, which to me, again, I
Well,
can't
that's another
understand that.
thing. That's another twisted thing. And I remember Catholics put Barack Obama. I remember talking to a good priest I know in Newark after the second term that Barack Obama came in, which I was convinced he wasn't because the economy was in shambles. Shambles. I thought
Right.
Romney was going to win. And I could remember saying, I'm embarrassed. I'm embarrassed.
Joe,
And
we both know Catholics that vote. I was in RCIA teaching RCIA when I was in New Jersey. And I happened to mention, not as a supporting in any way. I was trying to make a point to the young people there that were coming into the church. I was trying to make a point that we have to transcend politics and judge these things accordingly. And I happened to mention the fact that I voted for Donald Trump. But I didn't say it in a rah-rah way. And you had to see the look of anger on the person who ran the RCIA. Had to throw it. I voted for Obama twice. Now, you know me, Joe. I am a hothead. I wanted to go back at her. I showed a little bit of mercy and I kept my mouth shut. But that's prevailing attitude. I just went to lunch today with a couple friends of mine. One's a deacon, the two faithful Catholics, one's a deacon. That's what we were talking about. Trump derangement syndrome is a real thing.
oh, no
Okay,
question.
this
No
around. And as far as
question.
Catholics, I don't know how could you vote for? Go back to Al Gore, go back to John Kerry, go back to Barack Obama. How could you vote for these people in good conscience? And how could you compare abortion to immigration, or how could you compare abortion to the death penalty, or how could you compare cutting off the breasts of a young girl without her parents' consent or notifying her parents? How do you compare that to taxes? Like, I don't get it, because people
And
don't have their
frankly,
eyes open.
Joe, you shouldn't get it because they're not comparable. But again, it's a sickness. They just compartmentalize that. And again, don't get me wrong. Donald Trump is pro-choice too, but the
Oh,
church
yeah.
does say you can vote for the lesser of two evils. And he's not. And frankly, they are for third trimester abortion. That was a flat out lie. And I invite all people to look up an article in the Atlantic magazine from a doctor who performs third trimester abortion. It's from 2023. Google it. And he writes about that.
Right.
So ultimately, they lied. And frankly, many people will compartmentalize that lie. They live with that lie. And frankly, they don't do the country any service. And then when they're bludgeoned to death, somehow they don't point in the direction where the bludgeoning is coming from.
Yeah.
It's an illness, Joe.
No, it's
an
absolutely.
illness.
I agree. Listen, I agree with you. By the way, I think the number is of all abortions in the United States, 12,000 abortions are late-term abortions. We're talking about late-term abortions. So, and again, this is what I mean. See, Joe, you and I should be in charge of the GOP. Okay, you and I, because especially, and we can't get into all of it tonight. All Donald Trump had to say, and then we're going to move on. All Donald Trump had to say about abortion was the Supreme Court turned it back to the states. So neither me as president or Kamala Harris as president is going to do a damn thing about abortion, because whatever we might do is going to get challenged to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court's going to say it already ruled, that it's up to the states, and it's not even an issue anymore. Let's move on. That's what he should have said, because that's the truth, Joe. If they try to federalize abortion, let's say Kamala Harris is elected president, God forbid, okay? And they try to federalize it, you're going to have a bunch of states, pro-life states, that are going to turn around and say, hold it. We're going to file a case. We're going to file suit. We're going to go to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court already says that the states have the power, and the people in those states have the authority to rule whether or not abortion is legal and to what extent. That's what the Supreme Court said in the decision that overturned Roe. She can't do a damn thing about abortion, nor can Donald Trump.
But
the
what
only
she'll do
people
is
that could
she'll
actually do
burn-
something, Joe, real quick, the only people that could actually do something about abortion is the Supreme Court itself.
Well, ultimately, if she becomes the president, all bets are off. She'll stack the court. The country's finished.
They're not going to do, Joe, I got to say in fairness, real quick, I'm going to push back a little bit. They had the opportunity with Biden in 2020. They knew that those stacking the court or expanding the court, making Puerto Rico a state, making Washington, D.C. a state, they knew that was not going to happen.
I hope you're right. But I'll be truthful with you. After this election, after what they pulled, particularly at the border, particularly with children, allowing children, no parental consent, Joe, it's all political theater. I am completely done with this country, because it's now a slog to the end. I was saying this to my wife as well. It went from Joe Biden to Kamala Harris. Who's next? Is it AOC?
Is it Tim Walz?
It will be.
That guy's a weirdo.
But this is my point. It's going to get progressively weirder and crazier and wackier.
Well, Joe, when you own the election apparatus in major heavily populated areas of either red states or moderate or middle of the road states, swing states, okay, then guess what? You could put up a Bill Maher. You could put up anybody you want, okay, to become president, because if you have those counties under your control, no judge is going to do anything about it. No GOP is going to do anything about it. No RNC is going to do anything about it. Well, guess what you're going to get? You're going to get the same result. Now, here's the thing. I don't know. It's going on all over the world, Joe. It's like Invasion of the Body Snatchers, Joe Rossinello. It's going on all over the world. Let's go to England.
The door next door was to audit the books. What she found was a £22 billion black hole this year. Now, she had a choice: pretend it isn't there, walk past it, or deal with it.
No,
we said we're going to deal with it.
I just want to stop you there. I just want to stop you there. On that 22 billion, I want everybody watching this to know and understand that nearly half of that 22 billion, £9 billion, comes from decisions that your government has made to give many public sector workers pay rises above inflation, including junior doctors getting 22% of an increase over 2 years. So again, when it comes to winter fuel allowance, that was a choice. It was a political decision for the reasons that you say. You want to sort out the economy. But how can you justify it to viewers who feel like it is an attack on some people who've worked hard all their lives? They're not wealthy. They don't have money to spare. And this year, if it's cold, they're going to be looking at the thermostat and wondering if they can pay their bills.
So that's Laura Kay. You know what I want from Laura Kay? And I'm going to throw it right to you, Joe Rossinello. I want her to moderate the next debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. You see how she obviously has a show. I've never seen that woman before that clip. I'm assuming her name's Laura Kay because that's what it said on the thing. You watch it. He tried to lie, or at the very least try to make it seem like he had nothing to do with this 22 billion pound black hole. And she cut him off, and she went back at him with the facts and the truth. Can we get a little some of that in America? Can we get a little bit of that in America?
What I want people to pay attention to is that's what happens when the government has too much power. And that's what's happening now and in Europe, the disconnect between our ruling class and regular people. How do you make such a decision? He's dehumanizing those people. They don't need heat. Know why? Because they're powerless and he can get away with it. He has heat. The people who contribute to his campaign have heat, money for fuel, yet they are powerless, they're meaningless, and they're dehumanized. And frankly, that's the danger when a government does not have God at the center. Every government historically, from now till the beginning of time, the second a secular government comes to power, and that's exactly what England is, and that's exactly what the EU is. Power is the center, and frankly, power does not care about people, and God does. And I much rather live under a society where God is in the center, that does not impose their religion upon the people, but proposes it. And I much rather be under a leader who knows what it means to serve, because before you could lead, you first must understand what it means to serve something above you, which is God. And when you don't have such a person, that person is dangerous. And you just saw what that means. No heat for poor retirees.
Right.
Too
In the
bad,
meantime,
so sad.
But as she pointed out, it was his and his government's decision to raise the pay. They're bribes. That's what they are. When you raise the pay of public workers, that's just bribes. That's bribe payoffs. You voted for me. I promised you I'd give you a raise, and they give you a raise. That's why, by the way, public sector unions need to be abolished, because it's an inherent conflict of interest. Private sector unions, fine. Public sector unions, that's all that was a bribe. Now, he creates the 22 billion pound black hole, and then he wants to turn it, we can't pretend it's not there. And that reporter says, you're right. We can't pretend it's not there. You caused it. You caused it. All right. With your policies. And I was just more impressed with the fact that she shut him down. And like I said, you know, I'll give him credit because he went on her show. I don't know her reputation or anything like that, but that would be like Barack Obama going to talk to Tucker Carlson, let's say, and getting that kind of pushback. And Tucker saying, no, I'm not going to let you get away with that. We got to talk about that. That's the type of thing that Democrats want to avoid at all costs. We started this conversation talking about the debates. They don't want to go anywhere near that. Look, they want to get as much in their favor as they can, as you mentioned. Getting ABC and getting friendly moderators and everything else. And Kamala doesn't have to answer tough questions because she doesn't have to. And if she's forced to, it's because you're a racist and a misogynist. You hate her because she's black, if she's black, and she's a woman. So you get that whole thing. And then they want to try to control the media. So then all the people who spin on CNN, MSNBC, and the rest of it, they get out there and they spin it that she's so wonderful. And at the same time, they try to suppress people like us. Joe, do you know how many, and this is not me complaining, do you know how many tens and tens and tens of thousands of views we've gotten on Facebook over the last year? Do you know we've not grown one subscriber? Not one. Now, again, I'm not being a conspiracy theorist, but I remember that we were growing nicely, and then all of a sudden, it all dried up. What happened? And I believe that shadow banning. I absolutely do. Because I just, for everybody to know out there, following us at the front line with Joe and Joe, I share those videos. I'm in groups. I put them out there, Trump groups and Republican groups, Catholic groups and everything. We haven't grown one subscriber in a year.
Joe, 1 week we got 870,000 views.
And did not get one
870,000 views.
870,000 views. Okay? 870,000 views. Anyway, so then and because they already have control of the media, then they want to weaponize the government to go after social media. Well, you know who's had it up to here with that? Let's go to Brazil. Couple things. Now, see, we're gonna talk about Klaus Schwab in a few minutes. If you're just joining us here at the front line with Joe and Joe Pasillo, Joe Rossinello, we're weighing the breach. Please share this video wherever you're watching it. If you're watching it on X or Facebook, even though it's not going to gain us any subscribers there, Facebook, YouTube, X is growing nicely, I will say, Joe, and Rumble is growing nicely. So that's a good thing. Now, Klaus Schwab, who we're going to talk about in a little bit, and we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on in the Netherlands, which you're going to really be interested in because it's coming soon to a theater near you. Him and people like him, they want to sick the government. And in this case, I believe he's the Attorney General, Joe, of Brazil. He's sicking the Attorney General of Brazil on these people. But what reminds me is this. I remember that, for 50 years, as the March for Life was going on in Washington, D.C., the media would always cover it as there was about 3 people there. In the meantime, there's tens of thousands of people every year showed up in the cold. Yeah, there's about small protest in Washington, D.C. March for Life, by the way, and those prayers were answered when Roe versus Wade was overturned. I went to see Glenn Beck in Washington, D.C. in 2010, in August of 2010, just before I met my wife. And I went down there. Joe, I'm telling you something. And the police had verified there was hundreds of thousands of people there. The media said there was about 50,000 people there. Joe, you couldn't see wherever you looked, all the way down from the mall, from the reflecting pool in front of the Lincoln Memorial, all the way down to the Washington Monument. You could not see the ground. That's how many people were there. They lied about that. They'll have you believing that free speech protest in Brazil, it's a couple rabble-rousers on the street, not much. And that's why they want to shut down social media, because a clip like that gets into our hands, gets into Tucker Carlson's hands, gets into all the people out there who want people to know the truth, gets into their hands. And people say, wow, they must be really trying to put the clamp down on free speech in Brazil. I'll throw it over to you, Joe.
I put this to people, and this goes along with what you're saying. Did you know that many people are protesting in Brazil? Did you know that anyone is protesting in Brazil? The answer is no. You should have seen after the election, which got stolen when Lula, who was a convicted felon in prison, beat a populist candidate, Bolsonaro. You should have seen how many people took to the streets then. Did you know about that? Did the American media cover it? No. Does that trouble you? You see, again, are people connecting dots? Do people care? Like Joe, they're going to care. I'm going to tell you that right now. They're going to care. It's the saddest thing I have ever seen in my life. Joe, and I just don't understand it. Maybe it's me. Maybe I'm the weird one, but it bothers me. It bothers me how people could just turn off reality, especially reality that's going to hurt them. This is a situation, if you ask me, getting back to the last Brazilian election, that could very easily happen here.
Oh. Absolutely.
Easily. If people feel, that's why you put controls around elections. That's why you allow ID. That's why you don't allow mail-in ballots, only for the sick, only for people in the service, only for people who are in college. That's why you don't have electronic voting machines. The only person who's talking about that is Elon Musk.
Right.
He's the only one who's really banging that drum. That could very easily happen here. By the way, if Donald Trump is to surprise everybody, because he did surprise everybody in 2016, no one expected him to beat Clinton. No one. In fact, the cars, the limousines, they were at Clinton's house in Chappaqua, ready to take her into New York. And she lost.
Joe, thank you so much, by the way, for bringing up a warm, fuzzy moment for my heart when I see the clips of John Podesta and all the people crying They're all crying in New York and everything else. And it's been a hard night for everybody. Yeah, that's right, because you got a weak candidate, a scumbag liar like Hillary Clinton, a murderer. All right, is what she is. Okay, she is so part of the oligarchs, and we're going to get into that in a minute with what's going on in the Netherlands. She's all part of the global new world order. Okay, and she cried her eyes out. Why? In that case, love or hate Trump, Trump beat her. That's the bottom line. And that's why they stole the election in 2020. That's why they're trying to do it again. That's why Lula, a convicted felon from in prison, gets elected in Brazil. And that's hundreds of thousands of people, Joe, in that clip.
Wait to see, and God has a plan, and I don't know what that plan is. And frankly, Donald Trump might lose. But if he wins, watch and see what they do. Watch and see what they do. And
I'm going to load up on the popcorn and the scotch.
Watch. But Joe, it's not going to be pretty.
No, I was going to say, I'm staying in I'm only going to leave for 8 minutes. I work 8 minutes from where I live. I'm only going to leave to go to work. I'm going to leave here to drop my son off at school. I'm going to leave to go to work. I'm coming straight home. I'm going to make sure I load up on popcorn and chips and some scotch, kick back on the recliner, okay, and put it on. Now, it's going to be sad. It's going to be sad because people are going to die. That's not, I believe Alex Jones. I really do. I don't think he's a nut. A lot of people think he's a nut. He's not a nut. He thinks they're going to, you said it a long time ago when you said they'll never allow Trump to be president. Now, you and I both agree and believe, anyway, for whatever God's purposes are, which are not always what they seem to be, we do believe that he moved Donald Trump's head, okay, or moved that bullet a millimeter away, or else Trump would be dead. I do believe they spared him for a reason, but they're not going to stop. And Joe, Alex Jones thinks they're going to truck bomb him, and not only truck bomb a place where he's at, but when he's surrounded with a lot of people, it won't just be an attack against him. It really is some scary stuff. And here's the thing. If they didn't prove themselves to be so vicious and evil, I would say, maybe I believe every word of it. I believe every word of it because they'll stop at nothing. They'll stop at nothing. The push now in every place they're going to be. I'm sure George Soros and Klaus Schwab are pouring all sorts of money into Hungary, into Poland. They did in Brazil. That's why Lula got elected, because Bolsonaro was definitely going to win that election. Any place there's a populist, the only thing that's going to change within an individual nation, Joe, and you mentioned it before, is there's going to be a military coup where the military steps in and says, you know what? We're all in favor of freedom and democracy and everything else, but the fact is our government is off the rails and you're suppressing the rights of the American people, and somebody's going to take over. And you know what the first thing they're going to do is they're going to take control of the media. They're going to take control of the communications apparatus.
Well, people hear what you say, and some people say that's crazy, that's conspiracy. That's what happened in Chile. That's what happened in Spain. And that's what happened in Argentina when people do not get heard. And ultimately, what this government is doing is they created Donald Trump. Barack Obama created Donald Trump. And if they pull nonsense in this election, you are going to get the person you say Donald Trump is, who isn't that person. Right. He's not a dictator and a fascist, but you'll get one eventually.
Listen, we played them on the show. Jocelyn Benson, the attorney general in Michigan, she's a fascist. See, she's a dictator. She said if the county, the people within the county that are responsible for reporting the results of the election, if they impede the democratic process at all, we're going to come after you. That means don't question what we do. And she's using the power of her office to do it. They're the fascists. They proved that during COVID. And the weak-kneed, I was about to use a word I know you don't want me to use at the front line with Joe and Joe show, but the weak-kneed feckless, let's call them feckless Republicans, they went right along with it. And Donald Trump, in fairness, went right along with it too. When there should have been pushback from the federal government against Whitmer, against Newsom, against all of them, finally they dragged Andrew Cuomo up in front of Congress. I was watching a clip today, and they're grilling him about the people that he murdered in the state of New York. The fact is, it's always the same thing. You will need to have some military intervention. And I will say this, and I don't care what anybody says, okay? Pinochet was not a bad guy. In fact, what Pinochet took over, by the time, first of all, when they look at, and I won't be long-winded, Joe, I promise. When you look at what Franco did in Spain, fighting the communists, okay, and when you look at what Pinochet did in Chile, okay, fighting the communists and the drug dealers, all right. The fact is, those two guys did something that no communist dictator in our lifetimes has ever done. I don't care what communist dictator it was, from Stalin to Castro to Mao and everywhere in between. They both gave power back once everything was set right. And what did the people of Spain do? And what did the people of Chile do? Well, beware, Joe, sometimes when you give gifts to people and they took it and they squandered it, because Spain is a mess right now. Spain is an absolute mess. Okay. They voted back into socialists quite some time ago. Chile's no better. All right. In the meantime, these men actually gave power back after setting things right. And who knows what happens. But let me throw that over to you for a comment.
That's why, to be honest with you, though, force, it's a temporary Band-Aid, and this is a temporary Band-Aid. That's why, to be honest with you, it's getting below the surface. The problem is, frankly, it's sin. It's a godless society. People are sick, poisoned in the head, because, frankly, they're living in sin. I'm a sinner, but I also am a practicing Catholic. I go to confession. I went to confession today. I receive the Eucharist almost daily. I pray, which means I'm plugged in to God. Grace doesn't come from me. It comes from God. You have to open your heart to it. People have to turn back to God. That doesn't mean the state is a theocracy. That doesn't mean the state makes you go to church, but the state should encourage it because it's good for people and it builds strong families, and the formula works. The blueprint works, but we resist it. And because we resist it, we live in the muck and mire.
Joe, listen, you said it builds strong families. The only thing they're interested in building is 15-minute cities. Would you be happy sharing? Did you see the last one? Would you be happy sharing? Joe, it's pure straight up communism. The Soviets tried this. They tried this. I forgot the name of the city in the Soviet Union. They tried this. They tried to put together a city, and it was supposed to be the envy of the world. And it was very similar to the concept of the 15-minute city. I don't want to live in your 15-minute city. I want a car. See, I recently got a car. Traded in my old one. I got another one. All right. I got what Bruce Springsteen would call a brand new used car. So I have a brand new used car, but I like it. Okay. And I like getting in it, and I like driving down the 101. Okay. Maybe even listening to Bruce Springsteen, who's really cheesing me off and has on the political level for a long time, but I've always loved his music. I like driving down the 101. I don't want to stay within 15 minutes. I don't want to walk. I don't want that. I don't want you to be easily found by government agents that are on each corner. What do people think? Like, you talk about Joe Grace, and you're right. When people think about grace, and they think you're just speaking in just, purely religious terms, and because they don't understand the concept of grace. When you have grace, grace is a gift. And one of the gifts of grace is your eyes are wide open to what the evil one is trying to do to you. And yes, the evil one works through people like Klaus Schwab, who's bringing you that beautiful city, 15-minute city in the Netherlands. We got a lot of people who watch our show, who are listening to us right now, who are up in Canada. Chris Sky's been talking about it for how long? Okay. 15-minute cities. Not meant to make you happy. It's meant to make you. It's meant to make you oppressed while making you believe you're free as a bird. That's the evil part about it, Joe Resinello.
And many people who will listen to this will say that's conspiracy. Why is it, and I'm going to put a question to those people, that many of the countries in the West, Ireland, England, Australia, New Zealand, the Netherlands, Germany, they're all trying to do and doing the same thing? Almost like they were all at a meeting. Why are all of these? I'll give you an example because I'm not Kamala Harris. I give examples. Immigration. Why are all of these countries having unfettered borders? All of them. Because what they're doing is they're taking the power away from the populace by importing in a voting class. That's what they're doing. They're all doing it. The same thing. And you take a country like the Netherlands. Many people say this who follow the WEF closer than I, but I'll just parrot what they say. They test certain things out on countries maybe smaller than the United States, no offense to our brothers in the Netherlands, and see if it works.
Right.
And then from there, they try it someplace else. And that is a real life example. Look at what they're doing to the farmers across Europe, as well as to the farmers here.
Can I speak to that point real quick? I went to lunch today with a friend of mine, a couple friends of mine I mentioned earlier. One of them, my friend, is from the Netherlands. He's an older guy. He's older than me. He's retired, but he grew up in the Netherlands. And it's funny that I didn't know we were covering this story. And he said, back in the day, before the socialists took over, okay, you had a vendee type situation in the Netherlands. All the farms were owned by Catholics. The farmers were prospering. They were thriving. They were Catholic. And that means they were independent, okay, from the socialists. They ran them as cooperatives. Okay, so if you and I are neighbors and we're both farmers, you get the tractor 3 days a week. I get the tractor 3 days a week. In other words, they ran it like that, okay, as a co-op, and they did very, very well. And then the socialists came in, got rid of the whole thing. Now, all those people he said that own those farms now just are forced to actually have to just work on those farms, and they don't get the fruit of their labor. That's the Netherlands. Now, what's the difference? You know who's going to want to live who's going to live in a 15-minute city, Joe? Not those people. Not those people that I just described to you. Not those independent-minded people who know how to work the land or who know how to just work in general. It's going to be all the lazy bastards out there who are going to get their universal basic income from the government. And just like we've said a million times on this show, maybe it won't be a bottle of vodka. See, the Soviets used to give you a bottle of vodka. That was part of your ration. Here, go drown. Hopefully your liver explodes and you die because we hate you anyway. But in between now and then, here, take your bottle of vodka, go stupefy yourself. In the 15-minute city, it's going to be free drugs. Okay? So they're going to get universal basic income. They're going to get free drugs. They're obviously going to get all sorts of contraception and abortion and all that fun stuff. Okay. They're going to be able to have sex with whoever they want, and they'll be completely controlled, and you will not dare. Just like the Berlin Wall, Joe, you won't even dare approach that gate to leave that city. Don't even think about it, because if you do, you'll get shot. That's the thing that people don't realize. See, they think we make these things up. Well, guess what? We're old enough to remember the Berlin Wall. We're old enough to see the clips that freedom-loving people posted with people risking their lives to get across that Berlin Wall. The thing is, and I'm going to hand it over to you, Klaus Schwab and Justin Trudeau and George Soros and all the oligarchs. I shouldn't even put Justin Trudeau, because those guys are actually evil geniuses. Justin Trudeau's just a boob. But here's the thing. What they fail to realize is everybody who's tried this in the past has failed. Now, maybe they got a new card up their sleeve. I don't know. But I don't see Klaus Schwab as being more powerful than Joseph Stalin. I don't see George Soros being as powerful as Joseph Stalin. And yet the Soviet Union collapsed. And eventually, I'm going to throw it over to you. Eventually, like you said, you're going to have an El Salvador moment where 85% of the people have had it up to here, and they vote in somebody who's going to tear the whole thing down. Tear the whole thing down.
The reason why the Great Reset and the WEF and the collaboration between business and governments, which we're seeing it with, what do you call it? ESG, environmental governance, it's basically a partnership, and basically on every Bloomberg security that's noted, they get an ESG score. That's in the United States right now. The
Right.
reason why it's not going to work, which feeds into what you were just saying about Stalin, I won't be long-winded, is it goes against the natural law. All of these ideas go against the natural law. We were born to be free. All people were born to be free, and they're trying to curtail that freedom in the name of whatever, socialism, in the name of the 15-minute city, in the name of the World Economic Forum, in the name of the Great Reset, in the name of communism, and it doesn't work. And eventually it will fail. The sad reality is it will leave pain and suffering, a trail of it. We're seeing that already. When we just talked about a story in the UK that they don't want to give a fuel allowance to working class old people. That's a conscious choice. How could you make such a choice? Because I am disconnected from the people that I serve. You mean nothing to me. The ideology means everything, and we're pushing ahead, full steam ahead. People should think about that, because ultimately it's not far from where you're sitting right there. Wherever you are, whether you're in Canada, whether in the United States, whether you're in Europe, it's happening and it's growing. And Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are globalists. Don't be fooled. And Donald Trump isn't a globalist. I will never vote for a globalist. Ever. And I will never vote for an institutional candidate in this country for the rest of my life, because they don't represent us. I am all about the people, because I am the people, and so are you. And it's about time we start to see who is with us and who is against us. And your neighbor, even if you disagree with them, you're both going to get flushed down the toilet.
That's right. That's right. We want to thank. Don't go anywhere just yet. We want to thank everybody for joining us here at the Frontline with Joe and Joe. You're a very loyal audience. We want to help to grow that loyal audience. So please, wherever you're watching this video, help us out. X, Rumble, Facebook, YouTube, wherever it might be. Hit the like button. Hit the subscribe. Hit the share. I want to leave you with thought, but then where Joe just mentioned where. It really doesn't matter at this point, especially with our Congress, our bought and paid for Congress. We're going to let Tom Massey bring us out. But I will say this, Joe, remember there's always hope in the real, and we have an historical example, many actually, but here's an historical example we brought up on the show a million times. The fall of the Soviet Union began in Poland with an appeal to God, a public, powerful appeal to God. And not long after that, the Soviet Union collapsed. So we want to thank you again for joining us. We're going to leave you with Tom Massey for a few minutes. Remember, Thursday nights, 9 o'clock Eastern time, we go live. So like I said, share this video. Remember, till the next time, that our conversation is your conversation, and that conversation is going on everywhere. We'll talk to you soon.
Mr. Massey.
Can we be honest with the American people about what's going on here? This is political theater. I'm going to call out both sides right here. It's all posturing. It's fake fighting. We all know where it ends up. This is Groundhog Day. I don't care if the Democrat is the speaker or Republican is the speaker. We always get a CR in September, and then we get an omnibus. Sometimes there's a twist on that. We might get the omnibus before Christmas, but if we're not good, it comes after Christmas. But that's what's going to happen. And in the meantime, it's political theater. You know, we've got it's good theater. We've got great writers. I wish they'd just come up with a new plot. It's the same plot every fiscal year. What should we be doing? It's already been discussed. We should have done 12 separate bills. We should have done 12 separate bills. But again, whether Democrats are in control or Republicans are in control, we never do the 12 separate bills. Why do we always spend at least as much as we did last year, and why do we never cut spending? It's because Democrats want to grow the welfare state, and Republicans want to grow the military-industrial complex. And we're eventually going to get together, and they're both going to go up. I guarantee it. And both parties are just fine letting the bureaucrats do their thing, which should be our thing according to Article 1, Section 8 in the Constitution. We are empowered with these things. Most important of the things we do is the funding, and that's the big lever we have. You know, I've sat through now almost 2 years of hearings in this Congress where we've exposed lies at the CDC, shortcuts at the FDA, unconstitutional gun bans at the ATF, over prosecution of January 6ers at the DOJ, targeting common citizens at the FBI, spying by the NSA, illegal mandates for livestock by the USDA, targeting plant vaccine or transgenic plant vaccine at the NSF, and censorship, the censorship industrial complex of which the NSF is part of, automobile kill switch at the DOT. Now, these are all things I think most Democrats are just fine with, this kind of totalitarian state that the bureaucrats are pushing on us. But Republicans at least pretend to be against these things. But what are we going to do this September? We're going to fund every freaking one of those things that we have exposed. That is the tool that we have, is the funding. Why are we funding things we don't like? We don't have to. Well, it's because we're addicted to spending. And this doesn't do anything about the addiction at all. So let me touch on one point too here that I think is important. Is, you know, a couple years ago, or a summer and a half ago, I suppose now, we did something where we allowed the debt limit to be increased. But as a condition of that, we said if you do a CR that lasts past April 30th, everything's going to get cut 1%. And that, to me, seemed like at least a little tinge of fiscal responsibility was creeping in. But now I notice that this CR, instead of going 1 year and giving us time to do the 12 appropriations bills, is going to go 6 months. Now, let me tell you what's going to happen because this goes 6 months. Number one, it ends in March 28th, on March 28th. Well, the automatic cuts happen on April 30th if the CR went past that. So that is exactly why the Speaker chose a 6-month CR, is so we don't have even the chance, a threat to this town, it's a threat of a 1% cut. We don't want to even, this is like T-ball. The 1% cut is on the tee, and Republicans won't even swing at it. So instead, we're going to do a 6-month CR instead of a 1-year CR. That sets up another crisis next spring where we can do another pretend fight sometime around March. And that fight it'll be the same fight regardless of who wins the presidency and who's in charge of the Senate and the House. And we're basically going to get pretty much the same result. But that's 6 months from now. In the meantime, we can kick the can down the road. All of these things that we've exposed and all of these hearings are going to continue to get funded. But wait, there's a bright, shiny object on this CR. I've never seen one of these. I have never seen a bright, shiny object attached to one of these must-pass bills. Oh, wait, no. It actually happens. There always is a bright, shiny object, a bauble, if you will. A little something to get excited about. This SAVE Act, it's going to save us all, right? And by the way, this is good political theater. I do like this part of it, that we're going to see almost every Democrat cast a vote so that illegals can vote in our elections. I mean, that's pretty clever on the part of our Speaker to set that up, make you all take that vote. But here's what he's going to do after you take that vote. He's going to take it off. The bright, shiny object goes away. It's Lucy and the football again. And the American public is all revved up. Yeah, we're going to get to save it. We're going to save these elections. We're going to stop the illegals from voting. Really? How are you going to do that in like 6 weeks? I think they're already registered if they're going to vote. Some of them probably already voted. This SAVE Act ain't going to save anything. And particularly because it ain't ever going to become law. It's a false promise to get all the Republicans half pregnant. And then you're going to get fully pregnant by the end of September when you vote for this CR. That is not going to have this, I mean, I hate to break this to you. I mean, the Democrats already know this. I'm not telling you anything special. I hate to break it to the Republicans. You ain't getting the SAVE Act. It is not going to stay on this bill. Why? Because we're going to cave. We're going to cave. Is it a fight worth having? Absolutely, it's a fight worth having. Make those Democrats say they want illegals to vote. Make them take that vote as many times as you can, and then make them go to the ballot box in November. But that's what it is. It's political theater, folks. We all know where it ends up. We've seen it. I've been here 12 years. I've seen it 12 times. I refuse to be a thespian in this failure theater. And with that, I yield back.